I'm just tweeting it out.
I got to go into the YouTube part, and just to make sure we are monetizing. We're going to get started in just a minute, everybody. We appreciate you dealing with our technical difficulties. All right, the monetization is on. Let's make sure. Okay, that is turned off. Okay. All right. Corey, you ready to do this?
I'm doing, man. Absolutely.
You're warm. You're short sleeves. I'm outside in Gainesville in the shade. All right. That's Corey Bender. I'm Keith Niebuhr. This is the Gators Online live show. National Signing Day preview. It's National Signing Day Eve. We expect there to be a lot of action over the next, 24 or so hours. If you're a Florida fan, you're trying to stay optimistic. There's been so many flips down the stretch in the last few months that obviously it's been difficult. I hope everybody can hear me. We are ready to kind of rock and roll. Again, this is the Gators Online Live, Talking Gators recruiting show, National Signing Day preview. Right now, Corey, Florida sits with the number 8 recruiting class in the country. All right. It's not bad. It's not the doomsday that some people would have you believe. 19 commitments, although Florida was at one time in the 20s. They've lost some guys. They've had guys flip. Now 2 to Texas, 4-star defensive backs, Wardell Mack, corner safety, and 4-star safety Zephyr, Phil Same. They've had an edge rusher / linebacker, Jamonte Waller, flip to Auburn. They've had a defensive lineman flip to Georgia, Nasir Johnson. They had another defensive lineman / edge, Kendall Jackson, decommit. So the question, Corey, is with National Signing Day just a few hours away, it starts at midnight. Who are the guys we're watching? Of the guys committed, who concerns you the most? Who should Florida fans really be concerned about possibly landing at other schools?
Yeah, I think the two Keith that come to mind right away is Amaris Williams, obviously the defensive lineman out of Clinton, North Carolina. Right now I'm favoring Auburn. There's been heavy Auburn buzz over the last, several days. Well, actually, the last couple of weeks. Don't sleep on Ohio State either. I know there is still a little bit of confidence on the Florida side, but that buzz outside of Gainesville is really favoring Auburn and Ohio State right now. Another kid, obviously, we'll touch on too is Darius Hayes, a linebacker out of Largo High, and he's a lifelong Florida fan, committed way back in January. I think if you would ask him about kids who could flip several months ago, he'd be one I'd probably laugh at, as far as not being a possibility. But, Miami has really kept its foot on the gas pedal, got multiple visits over the past several months. And, they got him for an official this past weekend. So I think with them getting the final visit, that's definitely something to really keep an eye on. I think it's a coin flip between those two schools, but I think Miami right now has the momentum. And I think those two are the guys I'm watching the most, Keith. And I know Isaiah Williams is another one you have intel on.
Let me get back to trying to get to the
we can hear you though. That's the thing.
Trying to get back on the screen here. Okay.
There he is.
I tell you, it's been so many technical difficulties. There we go. Isaiah Williams, the 4-star receiver from Tampa that we're watching, a last-minute visit to Texas A&M over the weekend. About a month ago, Texas offered, and you're thinking, okay, he grew up sort of in Texas, so he's still got a Texas number. He's got all these ties out there. Could Texas make a move? Texas didn't make a move, but Texas A&M did, brought in Isaiah Williams and 2 of his teammates over the weekend, and one of them's a running back, one of them's an edge rusher, and, they may land those 2 guys, quite frankly. So that's somewhat concerning here. I think if you're Florida, you got to keep an eye on that. Does he want to play with his friends, or does he want to play right up the road from Tampa in Gainesville? And all of a sudden, there's a little bit of intrigue with that one. We're still digging. Just so everybody knows, we're still digging on everything right now. I'm in Gainesville. Corey's down in the Tampa area, and we're making phone calls. And, the problem is the information well sort of dries up right now. Kids do not want – there are kids that we have known that are locked in with Florida or somewhere else, and we know. We've had many people tell us, and sometimes that kid just says, you're going to have to wait like everybody else. And so an element of that too. But Isaiah Williams, the intrigue with him, excuse me, is growing. It's cold up in Gainesville, by the way, Corey. And one of the reasons is because, quite frankly, Florida has seen some guys leave the program lately, leave the commitment list. And so it just plants that seed of doubt with everybody. So Corey, Amaris Williams, our Ohio State writers told me earlier this week that, hey, Ohio State still feels like they're in it. So, you keep including Ohio State, but the confidence was so high at Auburn that you had to think, okay, it's got to be Auburn. I mean, the writers covering that team, the people within that program, there's just too much Auburn chatter to ignore. But, now we see that I think somebody on a competitive site put in a crystal ball pick for Ohio State today, and that's interesting. And so when I went and saw him back in November, I just got this bad vibe about Florida. Not even a vibe. I mean, he said it himself. Listen, so I'm reading some of these comments.
Are you talking about the Wi-Fi comment?
Yeah.
I knew you were going to get to it.
Yeah, but Amaris Williams said, "Look, Keith, man, I'm concerned about Florida. They're not winning like I thought they would win." And then also he mentioned development. When kids start mentioning development being a concern, boy, that's usually a red flag. But then, Corey, a week later, you and I talked to people, and they said, "No, Florida felt like they are still hanging around." And they said that Auburn was the other team to watch, and that Ohio State was fading and maybe out. Now, Ohio State never thought they were out, but everybody thought they were fading. And then Auburn made this huge move. Nobody knew Auburn was even in it until we reported that. Okay. So they make this huge move. He visits there recently, and they think it's like in the bag. It's done. It's like the guy's going there. So it's a wild recruitment. What I would say is I don't expect Amaris Williams to end up at Florida, barring some kind of there's stuff we don't know about. And that's a possibility, but there's just no chatter right now about Florida. And then the other guy you mentioned, who was the other commit? Adarius Hayes. And again, red flags. Shut down his recruitment at least once, but then took another visit to Miami this fall and then was back there this past weekend, Corey. And I don't believe the Florida staff knew he was taking this last trip. So, man, these are red flags. And these are red flags. Now, I would say this. He's a talented player. But if you're a Florida fan and you're like, okay, these are some doomsday scenarios here that you're bringing up. But if Adarius Hayes flips, in my estimation, of the 3 linebacker commits, he's the one that probably has the least likelihood of playing this season. I hope everybody can hear me. It's windy. That doesn't mean he's not a great talent and all that stuff. He's got a great frame, all that stuff. What it means is that Miles Graham is probably more ready-made to come in and play right now. Okay, now he has a signing ceremony today at Buchholz High School right down the road from where I'm at. And so he's locked in with Florida. Now, he can't technically sign until tomorrow, but, with school getting out and all that, the ceremony's today. The other guy is Aaron Childs, who, quite frankly, has the most explosion of any of the 3 linebackers, and he could see time at edge or, weak side linebacker or whatever. He can do a lot of different things, too. So, Corey, I feel like if you could lose one, you don't want to lose it. Let's just be clear here. But if you could lose one linebacker, I think you could probably get away more with losing Adarius Hayes. Now, long-term, it still hurts you if you think he's going to be a really good prospect. But would you agree with that, Corey, of the 3?
Yeah, 100%, Keith. I also think there's a little bit when I watch his film, his long-term position. I know he's he's a big kid. I think he could play closer to the line of scrimmage. I think he's going to add weight. Where you said Aaron Childs, he's SEC ready body-wise right now. He's going to get stronger, obviously, as a mid-year enrollee. But I think when you watch him, he plays on the edge a lot, but he has that frame of your traditional middle inside linebacker. So I think with him and Miles Graham, it's funny. You look at recruiting the last 10 years, you want, the bigger guys, the big corners, the guys that kind of the prototypical size, but you're starting seeing it circling back a little bit. Your traditional linebackers, maybe not the tallest guy, but the guy who's just a better football player, who's more savvy right now. So I definitely agree with what you said, Keith. I think either way, I know I talked to some people at Florida that, they wanted Darius Hayes in this class. It's a guy they've been in on for most of this year, but if he was to end up at Miami, they still feel good with that class at linebacker.
It's a strong linebacker class. I mean, Miles Graham, people at Florida think that this guy may be the best linebacker in the country. Okay. Not just one person at Florida, but multiple people. And Darius Hayes, look, he's a talent. No question about it. Again, you don't want to lose him. You don't. But if you do, you start, look, I mean, right now, if you're a Florida fan, you're thinking, boy, there's been some significant losses to this class. So what does it mean? We're telling you what it means. Long term, it probably hurts more than in the short term. Yeah. Now, right now, Florida was looking to maybe only sign 1 linebacker next year. Well, if you lose Hayes, maybe you have to sign 2 next year. Anyway, This is Keith Niebuhr, me. That's Corey Bender. We're with Gators Online. If you like what we're doing, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going to be taking the YouTube channel probably to another level in the next year. Also, leave a comment, good or bad. We tried to do this from the stadium earlier, but you couldn't get campus Wi-Fi over there. My signal was not as strong as it needed to be, so we had to cancel on that. I am in front, Corey, of the football complex. You can see the O'Connell or whatever it's called now, Exitech Arena at Stephen C. O'Connell at Billy Donovan Court or whatever. So I'm going to show everybody that hasn't been to the University of Florida. Here is the training complex. It's the outside of the training complex. Get everybody to get a good look here. Hopefully I don't trip. That'd be just great. All right, and here's the grand entrance right there. See that? So this is where recruits come in on visits. And right out where I'm at right now is where we interview the guys. So I wanted to give everybody a good look at that. It's kind of crammed in. It's kind of crammed in tightly here. So somebody waving to me. And, so right now all the work is going on inside this building right here. This is what they're doing. They're in there. Let me try to find the front. Last minute phone calls, working sources, talking to recruits, doing everything they can. And Corey, it gets pretty tense this time of year. Corey, why don't I've got somebody that needs to talk to me. This is kind of interesting. Let me, Corey, can you talk about what you know about Jaden Bolls' situation right now?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, so what I would say with Jaden Bolls right now, and we reported this on Gears Online the past 48 hours, Florida has felt pretty good there. And even when he visited 2 weekends ago, talking to people close to the program, the biggest hurdle obviously was at Alabama visit. When you speak to Jaden, his biggest thing was, hey, relationships. I want to have that home-like feel. And I know a lot of you fans probably obviously haven't spoken to him, but seen interviews. Jabbar Jalouk is a very genuine guy, a guy that can kind of win over a living room during the in-home visit process. So he's known to be a good recruiter. So that relationship was very strong from the get-go. And, Florida was probably most likely to flip him probably in October and November too when he was committed to Arkansas. And you look and you compare those programs, both kind of had down years, both are run-heavy teams. So you look at Florida and they felt good. And, talking to people the last few days, they still feel good. The issue right now is Alabama. There's confidence coming out of Tuscaloosa more over the last 12 hours or so since late last night. So right now, I would probably just say with Jaden Bolls, it's probably a coin flip right now. But right now, I would say Alabama probably has a little bit more of the buzz and the momentum. So I think when we make our final predictions later on, that's a guy that I think Keith and I are kind of going to go back and forth on. But as of right now, I think Alabama has the most buzz. But like you said, you'll see our final predictions later. Florida's still plugging away. Relationship is very strong, but we'll see how it plays out. And I know Keith probably feels the same way with Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, and Alabama's running backs coach, I don't know if you mentioned, Corey, I had to go talk to somebody. Robert Gillespie, former Florida running back, has been at other schools, North Carolina. He's been all over, real successful. And he's a relationship builder too. So it's a battle. Alabama's recruiting another running back, Kevin Riley, who's committed to Miami. A lot of people think he's going to flip. And so how does that impact things? Well, Florida has a running back already committed too, Kanan Daniels, who's very good. So I don't think that's a huge impact. I will tell you that, talking to Jaden's dad, look, they've got great relationships with Jabbar Jalouk, the running backs coach here, like you mentioned. They love it at Florida. They have friends in Gainesville. This is like almost a second home to them, very close friends here. But Alabama has kind of that running back pedigree right now, quite frankly. And not only that, but the usage of big backs there, bigger running backs. And I think that's kind of on their mind right now. I really like this kid. I compared him to Syatrick Faison, good size, power runner, former Gator player that was outstanding in the Zook era. And so, it's just one of those things. I mean, right now, if I had to put a gun to my head, I'd say I got to probably lean Alabama. They have felt optimistic. I don't know. I don't know if either school feels great, but I think there's optimism on both sides and maybe a little bit more on the Tuscaloosa side. All right. Yeah. Well, look, we can't do a show without talking about DJ Lagway, 5-star quarterback commit, and LJ McCray, the 5-star N/edge commit. Yeah. We both think that both of those guys are probably locked in with Florida. But, here's the thing that people have to understand. This is a whole new ballgame. Billy's recruiting and has Florida, Billy Niebuhr and his staff, have Florida involved with so many more big-level guys. People want those guys. Other people want those guys. All right? And NIL era or not, there's last-minute deals coming in, right? I mean, like, hey, how bad do these other schools want these guys, And so with LJ McCray, that Auburn is pushing really hard. That FSU is not going to give up. I'd even heard recently that Georgia hadn't stopped. I know that Tennessee reached out and inquired about it. So a player of his ability, that's what happens. But right now, with signing day a day away, the confidence in Gainesville is that they're going to hold on to L.J. McCray. And also, they feel the same way about – we're all doomed as the – what's this? I'm just looking at the comments. They're all with DJ Lagway. Again, Houston, Baylor, Texas A&M, Clemson, all coming in late. Texas A&M probably what most people would consider the biggest threat.
Yeah.
But look, he was here Sunday. I talked to him after his visit to Gainesville, and he said, "Look, I'm locked in. I'm dialed in. I'm ready to go." His plan is to go to the Under Armour All-America game later this month. I think check-in day is like in a week, Corey. He'll play in that game, and then if all goes as planned, he will drive straight to Gainesville after that. So again, the confidence is there with both those guys, but. As I said yesterday, Florida doesn't bring DJ Lagway in last weekend if there wasn't at least some concern, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least if there wasn't at least some concern. But look, if you land those two guys and even if you lose some other guys, you have difference makers. That's not going to make everybody happy. It's not going to make anybody happy, really, the way the fan base is right now. So you may end up with the 15th, 16th ranked class, but if you have difference makers in there, it would only be ranked 15th or 16th, let's say, Corey, because of the total commitments going down.
Yeah,
the quality of the commitments would still be there. Now, the question is, when we'll get into this a little bit later, did they address all their needs, and have they addressed all their needs? Well, they're still working on players on the offensive line. We know that. Corey, that goes up to our next guy, Favor Edwin.
Yeah.
It's an interesting guy. Kind of viewed as a longer-term project earlier in the year. Florida probably could have got him in the class, in April or May, but wasn't ready to push, needed to see more. And he went out and had an outstanding fall. But because of that, here's what happens. Other schools get involved. Auburn, Alabama. Two teams that are recruiting at a pretty high level right now, both in the top 10. Alabama may push for the number one spot. And so they offered and they both pushed. And at one time, it looked like he was favoring Auburn. Then it was Auburn and Florida going back and forth. Then Bama jumped in and he visited there. And it looked like last week it was all Bama. But now, Corey, nobody really seems to know. And he's going to shut it down. He's not picking up the phone. I think there's still some optimism / confidence. Is NIL becoming a factor? Does Florida say, hey, we've lost some guys. Let's put a little bit more money into Favor Edwin, who's a 3-star offensive tackle, but probably with 4-star body and long-term potential.
For sure.
What do you think about that one? Because, again, that's another one where, when you get this late, people want answers, cut and dry. Tell me, where's this guy going? It doesn't always work that way. I mean, the best guys in our business, the Chad Simmons, the Steve Wiltfongs, they are working the phones too, and they're on the fence with some of these guys because sometimes the kid doesn't know. If the kid doesn't know, we're not going to know. All right, and even if the kid does know, we don't always know. But Favor Edwin, Corey, this would be a nice finishing piece if Florida can pull this off. Do they have any chance at all?
I think they still have a chance, Keith. They prioritized him during the contact period. I know a lot of people, when we reported it about Florida visiting him, they're like, hey, what's the point? We're not going to get this kid. And Florida kept chipping away. They've been involved longer than Auburn and Alabama. And like you said, Keith, at the top, they could have got him in the class probably in early June when he was supposed to OV. But he said, hey, my timeline's going to be December. I want to do my OV closer to then. And Florida said, hey, that fits our timeline. So I think Florida, there is familiarity, and I know he likes a 2 offensive line coach system there. There's a lot of familiarity with that staff. So, I'm not completely surprised that Florida is kind of, upping their pursuit during these final hours. But like you said, the Alabama schools have been much more consistent over the past couple of months. And, Clemson was another school that offered him. Obviously, they didn't make his final top 3, but it just shows the growth this kid made. And you look at this kid, I think he said perfectly, he's a 3-star now. But if he puts it all together, he's a high character kid too, and really puts in the work. He can be a really good player down the line, and that shows why Alabama and these schools are all pursuing down the stretch. But I'm still favoring the Alabama schools as of today. I think you're on mute. Hey, Keith, you're on mute. Yeah.
The wind's so bad here. Jeremiah Smith is still sitting out there, and we're going to get all the comments here. Why are you wasting our time with him? But we have to bring him up because we know for a fact Florida's still talking to him. They went to see him each week during the recent contact period. That was 3 straight weeks, Corey. Ohio State continues to still feel good about holding Jeremiah Smith, a 5-star receiver, number 1 consensus, or number 1 overall recruit in the country. But Florida State, Miami, and Florida all are said to be heavily involved still talking to him, still pitching everything in the facility, development, medical, football, offense, and then, of course, NIL. And you can imagine as the number 1 recruit in the country, the NIL deals for him have to be just, they got to be high. They got to be through the roof.
Yep, definitely.
But just haven't gotten a ton of Florida vibe lately. You know what I mean?
And Florida's had opportunities too. I mean, like if you really look at the way when you visited during the season, was a Charlotte game, Keith, and he came back, I believe, for the Arkansas one. Two not huge games on your schedule that you don't really expect the number one player in the country to come visit for. But I think you said it. I think Florida State and Miami are above Florida right now as far as their chances of flipping. Never say never, though. I know, Keith, you cover this well. You know, and if he doesn't go to Florida, it won't be NIL. You know, they're coming heavy, and understandably so. He's a generational kid, but yeah, never say never. But I have right now, I have him staying with the Buckeyes, but with the two other in-state schools, you know, making a little bit of noise down the stretch.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to say, so talking to people in the know and the NIL know, they say that if Jeremiah Smith doesn't pick Florida, it won't be because of lack of NIL effort. It's there. They have let him know that, you know, you're the guy. And so it's, you know, it's, you know, we'll see. I mean, that would be the one that I think you could lose a couple other guys and it wouldn't, and people would be like, hey man, Jeremiah Smith, LJ McCray, and of course, DJ Lagway, you know, that would be huge. Hey, by the way, we're going to get to your questions in just a few minutes. So we appreciate them all. Corey, there's still other guys out there too. I mean, there's, you know, there's portal guys and all that. And people always say, could there be any surprises? To me, if there was a surprise, I mean, Jeremiah Smith's the guy to watch. But quietly, you know, one guy we haven't mentioned yet, Zay Mincy, 4-star cornerback. You've been on his recruitment the whole year, and you felt at times, like, hey, Florida's the team to beat. And other times you felt, I don't know, man, why hadn't it happened, you know? So for everybody that doesn't know, he's a 4-star cornerback from Daytona Beach, teammate of LJ McCray. He's not going to announce his decision until January 6th at the All-American Bowl in Texas, but he's going to sign this week. Just not going to tell anybody outside of the schools. Then the school's got to keep it quiet and all that stuff. It happens every year. Corey, what do you think about this one? Zay Mincy.
Yeah, if he's signing like he plans tomorrow, you know, that makes me feel like it might be Miami. And I say it just because of timing. I just think with, you know, the whole him and Corey Raymond are very close. He always said that his whole entire resume obviously was impressive, but it wasn't the deciding factor. But that still was his lead recruiter for over a year. So I think that obviously affects stuff. And I know LJ McCray's committed to Florida, and you think, hey, maybe these guys can be a package deal. They took OVs on different dates too, and I always kind of found that interesting. They're very close, they're good friends, but they've never been considered a package deal. So I just think right now, I think Miami's a little bit more stable, and obviously the staff has been kind of turning it up, you know, when Florida was kind of sliding a little bit. There's a reason I haven't changed my pick yet. Like he said, I've been on the fence. I lowered my confidence percentage. But, you know, right now with my gut feeling, I feel like Miami has a slight edge. If he wasn't signing tomorrow and he was kind of dragging this out maybe until February, I would feel a little bit better about Florida. But I think Miami feels pretty good right now.
All right, Corey, what grade would you give Florida right now? Number 8 class in the country. 19 commitments, may end up with less than that. But you've got some difference makers.
Yeah.
On the other side, you've still got some, you didn't really, I mean, Fletcher, Westfall, Marcus Maskell. Yeah, offensive line class is okay. I love Westfall and Maskell, but maybe not great. Defensive line class, certainly not like it was last year.
Yeah.
What kind of grade would you give them going into signing day? We may change tomorrow.
Yeah. Right? Probably a B. I'd probably give them a B right now, just given where it is. And I say a B as well just because I feel like they've weathered the storm a little bit. Obviously, like we talked at the front of the show, they've lost a lot of key guys, but they've maintained guys like Miles Graham, whose floor is very high on. The 2 5-stars are still in the class, and I think it could be a lot worse. I know a lot of people have heard me say that, but when you see a class kind of crumble like that and you have significant flips, the wheels could really fall off the bus. And, you know, obviously we're going to look back at some guys and say, man, Florida would have kept this guy. You know, what could the class would have been? But right now I got to give it a B. But like you said, Keith, it could definitely change, you know, given tomorrow how it plays out.
Yeah, right now there's one guy that we think we're pretty sure Florida's getting tomorrow. There's other guys they could get, Jaden Bolls, Favor Edwin, but one guy we're pretty sure they're going to get, and that's on 3 4-star safety Gregory Smith of Sumner High School just outside of Tampa. Now, for those that haven't followed his recruitment, he kind of burst onto the scene this fall. He's always played quarterback. He's 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", 195 pounds. Very good quarterback. His team made it to, I want to say, the state quarterfinals this year. But this year his coaches suggested, hey, why don't you play a little DB? You're not getting a ton of traction as a recruit at quarterback, even though you're very good. play some safety, and he did. And then the offers came: Florida, West Virginia, Vanderbilt, Virginia, Texas A&M. I want to say Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, and some others. And we feel good about him ending up at Florida tomorrow, Corey. I like him. A lot of times these fall evaluation guys, late evaluation guys, you don't know. Are they just taking him because they missed on some other guys? But Florida offered this guy and went all in on him when Xavier Filsaime was still 100% to Florida. What do you think of Gregory Smith? We think he's going to Florida. What kind of talent is he?
Yeah, no, I think like you said, Keith, good size. I mean, he's an athlete. I kind of view him as an athlete right now who's still learning the safety position, but a lot of upside. A big kid, covers a lot of ground, really athletic. He moves like he's much smaller than the 6'3" frame. He changes direction well. From a technical standpoint, you tell there's obviously room to grow. And the same thing with Xavier Filsaime when he was committed. He was kind of an athlete, more of a raw safety at the time from a technical standpoint. But I spoke to someone close to the Florida program a few weeks ago, and they kind of said to me, they said, hey, you look at Xavier Filsaime, you look at Gregory Smith, 3 to 4 years from now, who has the better career? And, it makes you think because, Filsaime's an All-American and all these accolades, but when you look at Gregory Smith, there is a lot of untapped potential. A kid, I think, that kind of plays with a chip on his shoulder too, that is kind of just ready to kind of get after it. And I think Florida needs that. And so I think overall, like you say, to be a little bit patient with them. He just started playing safety, like you noted, Keith, but I think the potential's there. I think he can. And the good thing is, too, with this eval, Florida got him early on in the eval process. And like you say, he's going up in the rankings. So it looks good on Florida's part. They did a good job with that eval.
All right, we're going to get to as many questions as possible here in the next 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to roll through these real quick. We both like the filibuster. We know it, although they only get mad at me for talking too much, Corey. Never you. You're the God's favorite, I guess.
I don't know.
It's okay. All right, Lucas says, how are we feeling about ball? Me, not so good. I'll say 40-60. 40 Florida, 60 Bama. Corey, real quick, what you got?
Yeah, I'm giving a slight edge to Alabama right now.
All right. TC says tomorrow's about to be a very bad day for Florida. Well, I think Xavier Filsaime did Florida a favor by flipping yesterday and not saving it till Wednesday.
Yeah.
Look, if you hold on to DJ, you hold on to LJ like we think Florida is, it's not the end of the world. You've still got the transfer portal. You find small victories where you can. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say those are small victories. Those are guys that are true difference maker types. Now for DJ, probably later on, a little bit in year one, more in year two. But LJ McCray should be a factor in year one with this program. Corey, let's get to some more here. Yeah. All right. I'll let you take this one. From a Florida fan's perspective, do you think Williams and LJ will flip? Corey, Amaris Williams, LJ McCray. What do you think?
Yeah, Amaris Williams, I'm favoring Auburn still. Ohio State's still in the picture, but I think he ends up elsewhere. And LJ, like we were talking about before, Keith, I think he stays with Florida. Auburn's going to come hard. Florida State's going to come hard, to that final buzzer. But, I feel good about LJ sticking with Florida.
Josh says, does Billy Napier get desperate and start throwing NIL money their way? I presume you mean the guys that are rumoring to flip. Listen, I mean, you have to decide how much is it worth. I mean, you're not going to overpay a guy that may not contribute for 2 or 3 years. It's tricky. Also, you got guys on the current team. You pay a high school guy to come in and he's making more than the guys in his room and he's never done anything. That's difficult. Now you say, okay, well, what about DJ Lagway? That's different. Mm-hmm. That's different. To get an elite quarterback, you're going to have to throw the bank. You're going to have to do whatever you can do. That's just the way it goes. All right, next question, Corey. I'll let you handle the hard ones here. They want to hear you talk. Brad says, why has high school O-line recruiting been an issue for Florida? What do you think? Different coaches, obviously, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's really they have to get better. I think it's a solid O-line class. Last cycle they got Roderick Kearney. They've got, and then even in the portal, if you kind of look, and obviously when, their first cycle in Louisiana with Osiris Torres, obviously he's a transfer. I don't think it's a recruiting issue. You're in these battles, man. When you're competing for a Jordan C and you're going against Ohio State and Alabama, they're just programs that have had more success as of late. There's no really way of kind of bouncing around that. NIL is important to Jordan C and these guys, but when you look at Florida right now, they're not as stable as other programs. That's really the best way to put it.
All right, Justin says, has Aaron Childs even visited anywhere else? That's the 4-star linebacker. Both you and I love his film, man. Yeah, he visited places over the summer. If he's visited anywhere lately, Corey, he's done it undercover, correct?
Yeah, if it's anyone, I know Maryland's been quietly pushing in the back because he's local, and we don't know if he's actually been to Maryland, but I know they've been trying. That's the only school. I know, Keith, we mentioned Florida State for him too pushing.
Yeah.
I can really see him right now. If he was a brand we pull a flip, it'd be Maryland. But we don't know that he's actually visited there, since he's committed.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really pick up the phone. Apparently, he doesn't pick up the phone for even the colleges.
I've been trying for 2 months, man.
Yeah.
He's a great kid too. He's not.
All right, our man Tawan says Miles Graham and Aaron Childs are playing in the same All-Star game, the Under Armour game. You and I will be down there at same game as Darius Hayes. So we'll all see. We'll be able to compare them all. That's a good point. And DJ Lagway is also going to be down there. Yeah, that'll be a fun week. No doubt about that. Let's see here. Let's keep going down here. Here's a good question. Brad says, has Florida stopped pursuing Dalen Evans? He's the Texas A&M defensive line, defensive end commit. I think they're still recruiting him, but he's pushed his recruitment, Corey, back. He's not going to sign until February, correct? And then he's going to take some visits.
I think now, suppose I saw a report today that now I think it was Jerry actually in Texas site. He might sign tomorrow. I might be wrong. I have to double check that. But just real quick about Florida, he told me recently that communication has kind of dropped off a little bit. I'm bearing any surprises. I don't expect Florida to land him.
All right. All right. Roland says, great job as always, even with me talking over Corey. All right. Mayaka Gator. Corey, if there was one guy that was not on the radar committed to Florida, who would be? Who's wait a second. I'm just trying to figure out the guy that was.
I don't know if he means flipping or just a good player. I guess I could do both. I'll just say.
Let's do both.
I guess flipping. I mean, honestly, we just talked about Aaron Childs. I just say that because he's kind of a mystery, and I know the local Maryland school has been pushing hard. I think that would be a huge surprise. But one guy who's in the class that maybe doesn't get enough credit.
How about Jeray Hawkins? He's pointing out in a later post, maybe receiver Jeray Hawkins.
Yeah, Jeray Hawkins. I'll even go with Mike Williams. And I say because he doesn't get much love, but I like his film, and I think the potential's there. Good kid too, but you can go a lot of directions with that. But yeah, I think those are two guys for sure.
All right, Sacred Sleeper. Hey, all, what's the scoop? Are we as doomed as the outlets are reporting? No. Look, again, you've got difference makers in this class, and potentially a lot of them, quite frankly. DJ Lagway, LJ McCray, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, Fletcher Westfall, Marcus Maskell. You've got some really talented guys. And again, if you can add a Zay Mincy, if you can add a Gregory Smith, the class, you're going to have around 20 commits. You're now picking up the pace in the portal. Things are getting better there. It was all doom and gloom Sunday morning, Corey, and now picked up 3 strong pieces in the portal. So no, it's your worst fears are rarely realized. It's one of those things. I mean, it's not the way you wanted it to end. But Corey, the bottom line is they're 11-14 in 2 seasons, 5-7 this last year, and it is what it is. I mean, these other schools played the long game. They bet on that Florida would struggle this year, and Florida did, and it's paid off for some of them. But Florida just needs to hang on to what they have right now and keep those key pieces, and I think they'll be fine. I think they will be fine. All right. Yep. Next question. Thomas, how does this O-line class compare to the 2022 class? Corey, I wasn't around. You tell me.
Well, let me I just want to pull because I'm not going to miss kids. Just give me a second. I just want to look at that class because when you look at Florida's O-line recruiting, I don't even think you can almost look at last year's class from a star perspective. I mean, this class is not, that far off. There's a difference. Give me one second, guys. I'm just pulling up this class.
Well, first of all, with this class, Corey, with this class, you've got 4 guys, and we really like 2 of them. Okay, Fletcher Westfall could be a tackle or right tackle. Biggest kid I've seen in a while, 6'8", 320, 330, that range, size 17 or 18 feet. So he's got a lot of potential. And then, Marcus Maskell is versatile. He could play tackle or guard. His brother played defensive line at Clemson. So he's a guy that comes from a football family, smart, very smart kid. That's what you want on the offensive line. You want those intelligent guys. I like that he's position versatile. So I really like those 2 guys. And then, Mike Williams has that big frame. But go ahead, Corey, I'll let you compare the classes now.
Yeah, I think 2022, I think it's much better now because, David Conner transferred out. He was another guy like Favor Evelyn who had a very high ceiling coming out of Deerfield Beach. But it was a lot of projection type guys. Jalen Farmer, who transferred out, I liked him a lot. I thought that was a good eval by former O-line coach John Hevesy when no one really wanted the kid. Alabama came in late. The one thing, Osiris Torrance was part of that class, and I know he wasn't obviously a high school kid, but he was still part of that transition class coming in. That, to me, almost pushes it over just based off the type of player he was. But if you want to go A to Z of this class, I think you don't have many guys that are going to step on the field in year 1 at all. But guys that can be solid players over the course of their career, like a Fletcher Westfall, I think is probably a year 2 guy, maybe year 3. Mike Williams has some time, and I think it's a solid class, man. I think the thing they're missing, they don't have that star along the O-line, the headliner. If they would have got Jordan Seaton, obviously that would have been the main guy.
Yeah. All right, next question. How viable, and this is from Sacred Sleeper again, how viable is the transfer portal to make up for these decommits? All right, let's take a look at the safety position. You lose Xavier Filsame, who quite frankly, very good player.
Yeah.
Do you want true freshmen starting? Jordan Castell was pretty good last year, but there were a lot of growing pains, man. And so would you rather have a veteran, a guy that's been in some big games and knows what it takes to be a college player, at least for next year? Yes. So losing Xavier Filsame really hurts you down the road. Mm-hmm. Long-term hurt. Short-term, you just picked up Triquez Bridges from Oregon on Monday. All right. Now, this guy has started games in the Pac-12 for a top 10 program at corner. He's going to transition back to safety, which he believes is his natural position. He's 6'3", he's close to 200 pounds. Okay. So this is a guy that's been through the battles. So in that sense, you could say, look, again, you don't want to lose 5 stars. So let's be clear about that. Corey, you'd agree with me. Yeah. But Triquez Bridges is a guy that you're probably going to plug right into the starting lineup. I'm not sure Xavier Filsame starts at Florida.
Yeah, and I think he, like we said, I think he's more of a 5-star athlete who's going to play safety. He was a hell of a safety, like I said, hard hitter. But when I look at Bridges, man, I mean, he's been through the fire and he's battled adversity. He's a guy that's seen the highs of playing. I mean, they had him as a Pro Football Focus 13, but I thought his stats, he could have been higher on that. He had a great year 2 years ago. And then this past year, 16 tackles total. And you would see a lot of guys say maybe, hey, I'm going to go to a lower school, maybe be a full-time starter. This guy wants to compete. He's coming to the SEC after going through all that. So I think he has legit size. I saw him rep close. He's really 6'3", a high character kid. And the thing that carried with me too, he said, hey, I see this room. It has a lot of potential at safety. They just need a big brother. They need a mentor to kind of show them the ropes. So I think you're kind of getting a good kid who has a lot of upside and who has production in the past. So I like the pick.
All right. Next question from Justin. Is Billy Napier asking recruits not to post in-home pictures? I don't think that's the case. I mean, some of them did. Some of them have. So yeah. I don't think that's the case at all. All right. Next question. We've talked about this kid before, but do we think Florida loses Amaris Williams? That's the 4-star edge rusher. Ohio State's involved. Auburn's involved. All the chatter has been, in the last week about Auburn. Yeah. But right now, there's some other sites reporting that keep an eye on Ohio State here. So, but it doesn't feel there's like little chatter at all about Florida right now. And I think that's concerning. And again, the comments he gave me when I was up in North Carolina a few weeks back when he said that, look, I'm concerned about their winning and their development and that stuff. So it doesn't look great to me. Let's see. Let's go after this. Okay. So Justin says, that's a 2-tier offer list for safety Gregory Smith. Well, again, sometimes it's the circumstances. So most of the schools, as you know now, Justin, have filled up their classes, a good bit of their classes by summertime, right? By the end of summer. Yeah. So if you say, hey, we've got all the safeties we need, but Florida thought maybe they'll stick with 2 safeties when they had 2 safeties committed, and then that would be it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then they decided later on in the cycle that let's just take the best available guy out there. You can always use an extra back-end player. All right. They evaluated players from all across the country, and they really fell in love with Gregory Smith, and so did Texas A&M, and so did some other schools. So even though the offer list isn't that great, sometimes you got to trust your own evals. Corey, I always say they're all fishing from the same pond, but it's a little bit different in the cycle because a lot of schools may be filled up at certain positions. They may not even be looking for a safety. We don't need to evaluate this guy. So.
Well, to me, it's the life of a late bloomer, man. Like at this age of recruiting, you wait, you kind of get seen off senior film. Like you said, Keith, a lot of stuff gets filled up, but it's not too bad. But you said West Virginia, Florida, Ole Miss. It's not too bad having good options down the stretch.
All right. Hey, I like this next comment. Dad bod makeover. I don't know
about the name, but the comment's great. The name's a little suspect. But.
Well, I think most people would say both of these parts are ridiculous, but no, Dad bod, appreciate that. Thank you so much. Harrison says, Harrison's one of our regulars here. Great. I was going to say great caller, but we're not calling in, so I don't know where that's coming from. Corey and Keith, if you have to predict now, does Adarius Hayes sign with Florida? Corey, you go first. 4-star linebacker.
No, I'm giving Miami the very, very slight edge as of right now.
Woo, yeah, me too. It's too many red flags. I mean, I could see it going either way, but it's like, it's a guy that always wanted to go to Florida. They give him the opportunity. He says he's locked in, takes a visit over the season, says he's locked in, takes a surprise visit the other day. It's just got a funny vibe to it. it
If
also
Florida didn't get the final meeting the last week either, he canceled
yeah,
that to go to Miami, which is another red flag.
it makes you wonder. I'm trying to point here inside this building. What's going on in their minds? Are they like, is this worth the effort? I mean, I don't know. That's something we don't know. Let's see here. Well, Justin's talking about the class as a whole. Is that closing the gap with your rivals? No, in terms of overall quality plus quantity, but if these guys that we think can be difference makers are difference makers and Florida does well in the portal, then yes, it's still possible. I mean, Ole Miss doesn't recruit like Florida, but they've got a better product than Florida right now. Why? Because they're winning the portal. So Florida doesn't have to maybe be as good as Ole Miss in the portal, as long as it's better with the regular product. They need to be good in both. Look, I mean, the bottom line is you got to be good at both portal and regular recruiting.
Oh yeah,
you have to.
It's a whole other avenue of recruiting now.
It is. All right, let's get to a few more questions here. We appreciate this. Casey Cronin, Keith, that's a great bender. What is the dream scenario for Florida on Sunday? Sorry, guys, it's windy here. It's not too bad. Dream scenario for Florida tomorrow, Corey. What do you got? I'm going to put mine on mute here.
I mean, a dream scenario would be flipping Jeremiah Smith. That's the first dream that everyone has, and I think holding on to a Maurice Williams and a Darius Hayes. I think those three. I mean, you want to add Jaden Bolls. There's some uncommitted guys, I think, but keeping some of these key pieces as a class is just as important as getting these others.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't feel good about a Maurice Williams at all. I don't even know that that's a dream scenario or a realistic scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but with Jeremiah Smith again. He's got to have to weigh, because Ohio State, I don't know if it's going to wade into the deep NIL waters that Florida State, Miami will. He's got to decide, do I want to stay home and maybe turn around a program like at a Florida or Miami? Do I want to go to Florida State and kind of continue that? But, of course, who's going to be Florida State's quarterback next year? Who's going to be Miami's quarterback next year? So Florida's got that edge, plus he's friends with DJ Lagway, who's probably going to be Florida's number 2 quarterback. And then, obviously, if the NIL deal is just enormous, I think if you're Florida, when you've lost Xavier Filsaime, at this point, I think I would just go, if you haven't already, and I'm sure they have, just say, all right, what does this guy want? What would it take? And then put it on the table and see what happens. Because quite frankly, it's not pay for play. You're still supposed to get something back for the money that the player is getting. Well, DJ Lagway and Jeremiah Smith, you'd get your money back.
Oh yeah,
it'd be worth it. It'd be worth it. Jersey sales, signs around town, advertisements, the local Burger King, whatever. Whoever needs sponsor. I mean, it would be whatever you would have to pay NIL wise. You would probably get it back 2 or 3-fold, in my opinion, with those guys.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that for sure.
I wouldn't care what anything else. I mean, I think you keep DJ and LJ, obviously. But regardless of what happens elsewhere, if you could get Jeremiah Smith, I don't think anybody would even – I mean, Xavier who?
100%. I agree with that 100%. Yep.
All right, a few more questions, and then we'll let you get going, Corey. Sam says, is the portal or high school recruiting more important for Napier at this point? Well, after tomorrow, it's going to be the portal. See what we have tomorrow, who sticks, what needs have you addressed, what needs do you still have, and kind of go from there, right? And right now, I feel like that it's kind of one of these situations where, after they look at the totality, after they look at the entire situation, then they will know that what they need, right? They're going to know what they need. And at that point, then you go heavy in the portal. And, they've got a young team that's got a lot of talent. They don't have too many too many giant needs. You know what I mean? So I think right now high school, but this time tomorrow it'll shift to portal.
Yeah, I think right now it's probably just equally as important because you need to keep those 5 stars. But I think with just the short leash we assume Billy Napier has for year 3, you need those instant contributors right away. So I think it's hard to say. If you want to say it right now, I think you have to split down the middle because you have the 5 stars highlighting the high school class.
I think I'm sitting here at the Gator Complex, the Hefner Football Training Center. I believe Titus O'Neil just walked in.
I thought you were about to get detained or something. The way you're looking.
I'm like looking around. I'm like, wait a second. All right. Ben says, I feel like Florida fans need to take a deep breath, not get hysterical. We have some difference makers heading in the right direction. Do you guys agree? I do agree. However, you still, it can be both, right? Hey, I like what they've got, but there's still some concerns. Why were there so many decommitments? What happened? Were there some misevaluations on a personal level? Were there red flags that were missed? I mean, these are legitimate questions. I'm sorry, but they had 20 something commitments. Now they have 19, maybe 17 tomorrow. I don't know. Corey?
Yeah, I think overall, they're making good strides, but I just think there definitely is concerns. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And we're talking about kids decommitting starting in the 20s and 19s. It's a trickling effect. These kids, remember, we're adults sitting here talking recruiting. These are teenagers that maybe are close to one that commits to say, hey, he's not going, I'm not going to go. It's a trickling effect. So I'm not too surprised by it.
All right, Josh, one last thing. Keith, by the way, was Brian Harsin the worst coach you've covered?
Oh, that's great.
I think so. I mean, he probably is a great X's and O's guy and smart football coach, but you can't get to a big-time SEC program and think you're going to out-evaluate everybody else. Didn't you guys see that year before?
Oh, yeah.
Don't trust us. Trust it. Don't worry about the rankings, the recruiting rankings. Trust us. We know what we're doing. They all recruit from the same pond, all the big boys. All right, a few more questions, and then we are out of here. All right, let's see. Corey, Truth Seeker, is there any chance Florida will land inside the top 8 at least?
Oh God, now? No, I don't think so. I think even if they get a few guys, I think it'll equal out. I don't know. Maybe they finish around 10, but I don't think they stay in the top 8. I don't.
Yeah. All right. Good comment from Jeremy. Next year, just need to win, period. That's what it's going to be all about. I think, Corey, there's going to be a shift. Not an intentional shift, but a shift due to the circumstances and how Florida recruits this next cycle. And here's what I mean. Once you get on the hot seat, the perception that you were on the hot seat as a staff, all of a sudden it's a little harder to get these big guys. I think Florida's going to have to play more of the long game next year. It may be a long summer. There may not be a rush of commitments like there were in June, but go out, hope you play well, and that you can change some minds. I think that's going to have to be the strategy because right now, the 2025 class, we're already seeing it. A lot of the best players aren't even putting Florida in their top 5, their top 8s, their top 10s, their top 12s, and that's a little concerning. So it's going to have to be a show me something type year, I think. Corey, what do you think?
100%, man. I think next June it's going to be a lot of wait and see. You're going to get some commitments. Guys are going to be on board and believe that it's getting turned around in the fall. But I think a lot of these elite level kids, I think they know obviously they kind of take a business approach and they know where Florida is right now. They're going to get some commits, but I don't think it's going to be as active as it was this past June.
We addressed this a little earlier, but just one more time on LJ McCray, 5-star edge rusher /N. Corey, we both think he sticks.
Yeah, I agree. I think he sticks as well. Yeah.
Again, Auburn going heavy, big pushes down the stretch and flipping big name guys. Do they have one more in them? But right now we feel like he sticks with Florida.
And just to throw out there too, while we're live, Chad Simmons, our colleague, just tweeted out that Alabama's officially moved to the top for Jaden Bolls.
Well, there you go.
So just
we hadn't felt great about it, or I hadn't felt great about it. I think I felt worse than you did, Corey.
No, you did. Yeah, I heard a lot of Florida buzz, but Alabama's been picking up for sure.
Yeah, but it's not like you're gloating. You don't want to. You'd rather not be right when it's that kind of news. You know what I mean? But look, I mean, but here's now again. You can find, and this is I guess this is sugarcoating, Corey, but you try to find a silver lining in everything. Florida has a really good running back coming in. All right, Kanan Daniels. If Montrell Johnson sticks, and by the way, the Florida staff, if he stays, the Florida staff has told Jaden Bolls' family that Montrell Johnson is staying, is coming back for another year. You've got Trayvon Webb. Then you'll have Kanan Daniels. Maybe Cam Carroll can give you something. And also, you can find value. That's a position you can find good value at in the transfer portal. And if your offensive line is better, then all of a sudden your running backs are better too. So I'm not as overly concerned as everybody else, but anyway, that will do it. Listen, guys, we appreciate all your support this past football season and this recruiting cycle. Now, tomorrow on signing day, we're still setting it all up, but I'm going to be out in front of the building here, freezing my ass off, Corey. Corey's going to be at home eating Captain Crunch and drinking hot chocolate. But we're going to try to do live look-ins 4 times during the day at least, probably 8 a.m., 10 a.m., noon, and 2, where Nick Delatore, who works with us at Gators Online, is going to zoom in with us or whatever through StreamYard, and we'll give you all some live updates on this same channel tomorrow, National Signing Day. We got to get back to work. We got a lot of phone calls we got to make. We have a lot of sources we have to check in with. But again, for Corey Bender, I'm Keith Niebuhr. This is the Gators Online live show, National Signing Day preview. Thank you so much to everybody. Have a safe and fun signing day. Step away from the ledge. It's never as bad as you think. hold on to DJ Lagway and LJ McCray, Corey, and it ain't too bad. Those are franchise builders right there. Corey, any final thoughts?
I think you wrapped up perfect, Keith. I think overall, and I'll just keep saying it, man. I think if you keep the 5-stars in the class, Miles Graham, a lot of these other key 4-stars, it's still a solid class, and it could be way worse than what it has been with the trickling effect with decommit. So we got to see. I think overall in January, I think that's where you're going to see Florida really start pushing for the portal. So we're just getting started.
Expecting some big visitors that first weekend, probably in January. Important visitors, I should say, in terms of transfer. Anyway, that will do it. Everybody take care. We'll see you tomorrow.